You can be great at scheduling, tracking KPIs, and writing flawless project plans. But the moment you're expected to lead people, everything changes. Welcome to the Project Management Masterclass, the show where project leaders are made. This platform exists for one reason. Tools don't deliver projects, people do. That's why the Power Skills Academy was created, to help project professionals master the skills that actually move the needle. Emotional intelligence, communication, collaborative leadership, and strategic thinking. The skills that elevate your influence and make people want to follow your lead. If you ever thought, what am I missing? This is your answer. Visit www.developpowerskills.com. The link is in the description. Now, here's your host, Brittany Wilkins.
As we approach the holiday season, consider giving the gift of knowledge and helping us grow the field of project management. Please share this podcast with your friends, colleagues, and anyone passionate about project management. Welcome to today's special themed episode of Project Management Masterclass, where project management meets a festive twist. Today, we're giving the classic 12 Days of Christmas song a project management makeover. Whether you are leading a team or striving to meet deadlines, these 12 days will remind you of key elements that keep projects on track. So let's get into a spirit of productive cheer. On the first day of project management, my project team gave to me a clear project vision. Every project begins with a crystal clear vision. It really is the North Star that guides all your efforts and decisions. How do we arrive at a crystal clear vision? Start with why. Understand the core purpose of the project and how it aligns to your organizational goals. What problem is the organization trying to solve? And what will be the outcome as a result of the project team solving it? This will enable you to create a problem statement. And the problem statement should be time-bound, as a project is a temporary endeavor with a beginning and an end. So ask yourself at the beginning of each project and throughout the life cycle these 6 things. Number 1, how clear are we on the outcomes we need to achieve? Number 2, how clear are we on the methods we are going to use to accomplish? Number 3, do you or the team, are you guys aware of some of the known unknowns? Or what about some of the unknown unknowns? This may be a little gray at times in many projects, as they're kind of starting out trying to figure out where we're trying to go, leading to number 5, asking those questions. What are some areas of uncertainty? And number 6, what answers or information do we need to have? Or what do we need to determine in order to reduce ambiguity? These questions should lead you on the path of defining your project vision. I think as it really grounds the team on what realistically can be achieved and what may need to kind of be descoped if there is really no clear method on how we are going to achieve the vision. And stakeholders play a role in the project vision. So, on the second day of project management, my project team gave to me 2 stakeholders engaged. Engaged stakeholders are essential for aligning expectations and ensuring support throughout the project lifecycle. To provide a bit of context for anyone listening who may be new to project management, a stakeholder is any one person or a group of people or organization whose interests may be positively or negatively impacted by the project or the product of the project. One of the first pieces of advice I received when I began my project management journey was to create a who's chart or a stakeholder matrix or grid, because this helps to review and assess each stakeholder's position in terms of project engagement and management strategies based on their level of power and influence. And depending on the size of the project, there could be a lot of stakeholders, which would make this exercise very time consuming. But personally, doing this time consuming exercise has helped me with prioritization, strategic communication, and alignment and buy-in. As part of my communication plan, I host a weekly stakeholder meeting, ensuring yesterday's priorities are still today's priorities, to build those relationships, to really understand the motivations behind the project vision. Because oftentimes I get pulled into situations where there's really no real project vision or plan, and I have to create one. So I use my stakeholder meetings as ways to kind of articulate, this is what I would like to accomplish as I'm getting up to speed on what really is the scenario or situation, and then getting that feedback and buy-in from the stakeholders. Are they in line with the new project vision that we should have had, all along? And as a project or program manager, so much information is really coming at us. And so my chart or the matrix, it really helps to ground me and enable me to discern and filter the information on what pieces of that information, what is really beneficial and what is really kind of disruptive that can really derail the project based upon some of the stakeholders' level of influence. On the third day of project management, my project team gave to me 3 critical milestones. Defining key milestones keeps everyone motivated and helps track progress against the timeline. Examples of milestones could be, what date is the project kicking off? Do you have a new product development? So what is the completion of the design phase or phase gate? That could be a milestone. When do we anticipate that we can get a client's approval of a prototype? That's a milestone. Or even, when do we expect, or what is the goal to launch a new product to market? That is a milestone. But as you know, progress does not come without risk or issues. On the 4th day of project management, my project team gave to me 4 risk assessments. Regular risk assessments allow for proactive issue management, helping you to avoid surprises. But I also think it's a great communication assessment to have with key stakeholders and the leaders of the organization, as it helps you as the project leader and the project team to really build that trust with the executive leadership team, as it shows them that the team has assessed all the risk of the project and really thought about what could be some of those potential uncertainties we don't know, and we've documented as a risk, as it could be impactful if it does become an issue. And I would recommend to either use a risk cube or a RAID log, risk, actions, issues, and decisions, log. There are many of templates out there today. I believe there's a free template on the Project Management Institute website that you can download. I don't know if you have to be a member or not to download it for free at no charge to you, but I do think it is important because I believe the RAID log that encompasses the risk, the actions and the issues and the key decision, that helps to keep the story straight, because chapter after chapter, the project, the different scenarios, the situation, people may change. That really helps to kind of standardize the project story and see how the project is evolving, and really helps you to assess how far are you off from your original baseline based upon many of the key decisions that have been made. On the 5th day of project management, my project team gave to me 5 golden metrics. Yes, the shiny key performance indicators that illuminate the path to success. These metrics help the story of the project. It helps really kind of communicate the benefits of what the project is trying to achieve. So for example, one KPI could be if you are trying to get the cost down in a particular project for a product or service, it could be productivity and or cost savings. Or maybe you're developing a new evolution of a particular product. You know, you want to really improve or enhance that performance. So maybe you can have some technical KPIs as far as performance in there to kind of measure, you know, the benefits of the new product evolution versus the old evolution of the product. Or if your project vision is to modularize your portfolio, maybe your KPI could be SKU consolidation or part number reduction. But no matter what project you are leading, it is definitely important to have those key performance indicators, because I believe it truly does, you know, align people around not only the project vision, but as well as those success indicators that the team is striving to achieve. And if you or your organization is agile, you know that sprint reviews are essential in an agile environment. So on the 6th day of project management, my project team gave to me 6 sprint reviews. Frequent sprint reviews really help the team adapt and improve, ensuring agile progress. Sprint reviews showcase a few things. Number 1, work that is done and are completed based off the sprint goals definition of done. I think the sprint reviews help to gather feedback, and it helps the team to adapt the backlog based upon the feedback, which can then be updated to reflect new priorities. Then also too, I think sprint reviews really help to celebrate achievements as the team sees the number of items in the backlog decreasing. You know, they say the only constant in life is change. On the 7th day of project management, my project team gave to me 7 change requests. Handling change requests with care ensures the project stays adaptable without losing focus. Change is, and it can be, a disruption. And very early on in my journey, I would become really irritated with change requests, questioning engineers like, you didn't know this before, or how come you didn't tell me this information prior to us putting this plan together? But you know what? Things happen, and I realized that I have to keep an open mind, and I have to allow some level of flexibility. But the one thing I will say prior to incorporating any type of change is that I always make my stakeholders aware of how that change, while it can be implemented if you so insist, but how it impacts scope, the schedule, and potentially the budget. Because I was in a scenario one time where there was some change requests coming down the pipeline from the design release engineer, but he still wanted the original schedule to remain intact. And I said, that's not how this is going to work. The change you're implementing requires us to go out, procure a new part number to accommodate this design request. And so we reached out. I work with procurement team, and we reached out to say, how long is it going to take to get this new Tyco connector? And the timeline was extremely long. It was like 8 to 10 weeks. And I went back to design release engineer, also our leadership team. I said, hey, I'm being told this from our procurement team. This is when we will enable this part. And it's like they didn't believe me at first. So I had to visibly kind of show them the email saying, you want this change, fine, but your schedule cannot remain intact as it is, and this will push the schedule to the right. So be cognizant of that sometimes stakeholders want changes to the project, but they still want the original timeline to remain on track. And it's all a balancing act, right? We all have to be open to how the dynamic of the project changes, what are the impacts, and kind of be creative to say, how can we remain on track without veering too far off to the right? On the 8th day of project management, my project team gave to me 8 hours of buffer. A little buffer time goes a long way to observe unexpected delays and keep the project on schedule. I hope the PMBOK gods do not come after me, as it really is a cardinal project management sin to pad a project. But it goes back to what I said early on in the project vision and creating that project vision. There will probably always be some of those unknown unknowns, because especially since if this is something that the organization or the team has never done before, this may be a new product introduction into your portfolio where you may not have history or experience and you don't know how this is going to turn out. So when estimating hours for a project, I think it's good to back up those estimates with assumptions based upon what you know today and what could potentially happen. I think as the project evolves, we're always really learning about how things will play out, what will be impacted, and that does kind of impact the timeline and the hours that are dedicated or hours that need to kind of be refactored into the project. On the 9th day of project management, my project team gave to me 9 lessons learned. The lessons learned phase provides insights that I feel are invaluable for improving future projects. Every time I start a new project, I've gotten into the habit of asking, are there similar projects that have been done like this before? And if so, what can we learn from that project? What were the successes? What were some of the failures within the projects? What were some of the things that the project leader and the team leaders thought that could be done better if they had the opportunity to do the project over? And one of the things I really enjoyed, after wrapping up each sprint and some of the agile projects that I was involved in, was the retrospective. And it's really the team sitting down, and we utilized a tool called Jira, and within that was a template, kind of a lessons learned template, and the template was kind of broken down into like 3 distinct columns of what should the team start doing, what should the team stop doing, and what should the team keep doing. And I think it really set kind of the tone, as sometimes we don't take the time to really stop and think about, okay, how can we continually improve as we move on to the next thing? Sometimes we close out a project, and although closing out a project, we should document and gather those lessons learned. In reality, we don't, because we have to, hurry up, scurrying on to move to the next thing. But getting back to just some of the simple basics and fundamentals of documenting lessons learned, it really helped me to evolve and move on to, other projects where we were consuming and had to integrate a lot of data from some of our ERP systems. So a lot of the same projects that revolved around building automated dashboards that required pulling data in from the source, I was able to use a lot of those lessons learned to inform the new stakeholders of the new project teams that I was leading. Like, hey, this is a great project endeavor you want to undertake. By the way, there was a similar project done before like this. Here was all of the things that we were up against, the constraints. By the way, some of the constraints were uncontrollable, beyond the control of the team. It was just something we had to learn to live with, how to navigate it, and you will be also up, or we will also be up against the same things. So again, history kind of repeating itself and learning the lessons from history. On the 10th day of project management, my project team gave to me 10 Gantt charts planning. Visual timelines like Gantt charts help maintain visibility and organize tasks efficiently. Timelines to me are like the GPSs of the project. And I think one of the biggest mistakes I made early on in my career was not saving my original timelines. I was working on bringing a new battery pack for EV OEM to market. And again, change request coming down about, a new design or a new part that wanted to be incorporated. So I had to go away from the original timeline. And what I did is I edited over that original timeline, because the engineer was saying, no, I want this new parts, or it really completely changed our whole schedule. But many of the things we were trying to forewarn, the engineer from our OEM customer that we don't think this is a likely scenario to happen to play out this way. And not saying the customer is always right, but again, the customer knows what they want, and it's our job to give the customers what they want. But eventually he came back around and he wanted to go back to the old original battery pack design. And so they said, okay, well, what was our original plan? Brittany, bring up that original timeline and schedule. And I didn't have it anymore. And I couldn't remember at that point in time, what were all those original details that I had in there. So I really kind of had to start over from scratch. And so while it may seem excessive to have 10 Gantt charts for a project or program, I do think it is good. I've gotten in the habit of just having maybe 2 to 3 based upon some different kind of scenarios, based upon some assumptions, some unknowns, and some uncertainties. This way, as the project is kind of teetering back and forth while we're trying to decide what directions we're trying to go, I kind of have these different timelines as well to help. But also too, depending on which tool you use, you may not have to manage multiple timelines. There is in Microsoft Project a neat feature called an active, where if something, comes out, a task, we don't think we no longer need because the direction of the project's changed or no longer fits inside the schedule, you can inactivate it. It doesn't delete it. It's still there, but it may come up again when we may have to add it back. So I can just, hit the feature and activate it back into the original project plan. So just be mindful when you're putting together Gantt charts, and just knowing that always keep your original copy, even though you may have to have different versions depending on the project scenario and how it plays out. On the 11th day of project management, my project team gave to me 11 user stories prioritized. Prioritizing user stories ensures the most valuable work gets done first. It's keeping stakeholders happy, essentially. But I always say, if everything is a priority, nothing is a priority. And prioritization helps one to really maximize value delivery. Also, teams have limited time and resources, so I truly believe prioritization helps with efficient resource allocation. On the 12th day of project management, my project team gave to me 12 team members collaborating. Collaboration is at the heart of any successful project. 12 team members working in harmony symbolize the power of teamwork. Teamwork makes the dream work. An old cliche, but it is very, very true. And there are 4 phases of teamwork: forming, storming, norming, and performing. And I once read a statistic that only 25% of teams really reach that performing phase. And in one of the earlier shows, I kind of discussed 9 methods for project success on tools you can incorporate to kind of bring a team together as one operating unit aligned on one common mission. And how do you get the team to really focus and lock in on that project vision, developing those milestones together, achieving those critical KPIs, and really documenting the lessons learned of the project. No project is successful without a team. You, me as the project leader, cannot achieve success alone. So it's really important to really rally the team around a common mission, and to ensure that we are implementing tools that allow us that space to collaborate together. And that wraps up our special 12 days of project management. I hope this festive spin inspires you to really reflect on your project management practices, and maybe even share a laugh kind of with your team as you wrap up your projects for the year. Just remember these 12 elements to really lead with confidence and with a touch of holiday cheer. Thanks for tuning in to Project Management Masterclass. Please don't forget to subscribe and share this episode with your fellow project management enthusiasts. Until next time, keep those projects merry and bright.
Thanks for listening to the Project Management Masterclass. If you're ready to lead at a higher level, explore the Power Skills Academy and start mastering the skills that drive real project success. Visit www.developpowerskills.com. The link is in the description. See you in the next episode.